Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Teresa Castro, and I'm a proud alumna and staff member in UNC's Office of Alumni Relations. Thank you all for joining us today for the Alumni Career Panel, Alumni in the Small Business World. Today, we will learn from, connect with fellow UNC Bears in this industry. Before I introduce you to our panelists, I would like to share a couple housekeeping items. First, this event will be recorded and will be available on demand a week after the event on our alumni website. I will share the link in the chat. And second, I invite you all to start building your network and reach out to our panelists after the event. I will also post your contact information in the chat. As we highlight the careers of these alumni, I invite students, fellow staff, and faculty to ask questions via the Q&A feature. Now, please help me welcome our panelists. Panelists, please introduce yourself by stating your name, your pronouns, title, the organization that you work for, your UNC degree, and a little bit about yourself. Alton, we'll start with you.
Alton Dillard, I use he, him. I am the principal consultant of the Dillard Group, LLC, majored in journalism mass comm at Northern Colorado, class of 1986. As I like to tell people, 2 years Turner, 3 years Lawrenson, West Side.
Perfect. Thank you, Alton. And Nick, how about we go to you next?
I'm Nick Mancini. He, him, his are my pronouns. I went to the UNC satellite campus in Lowry for my master's degree in clinical counseling and graduated in 2013. I am the co-founder of Collective Counseling Solutions and am excited to be here with you all today.
Thank you, Nick. And Nicole, why don't you close us out?
I am Nicole Watkins, she, her. I am president of Lake One Financial Services and co-owner of the original Roma on 16th. I went to UNC business degree, emphasis in accounting, graduated in 05.
Awesome. Thank you, Nicole. And alrighty, we're going to jump right in. So first question of today's panel. In what ways did your UNC experience shape and propel you towards launching your own business? And Alton, we'll start with you.
One of the ways it propelled me, and my story is a little different because I had a 30-year career before starting my business. But one of the things I learned at UNC was how to communicate with different types of people. I'm a city guy. My first roommates literally were cowboys from Salida, Colorado. And being a city guy, I'd never really interacted with anybody like that. And one of the things that I really enjoyed about my UNC experience was getting a chance to meet students that were both urban and rural, and the students who were not from Colorado. So learning different ways to communicate with different kind of people is a skill that I use, and that teaches me to this day how to communicate with different audiences.
Yes, I agree. Thank you, Alton. Nick.
One of the experiences that I had that I feel like is really foundational to me starting my business and preparing to kind of move into the counseling world, specifically around private practice and entrepreneurship, is that a lot of the professors that I had in graduate school were also practicing themselves or had private practice experience. And so throughout my classes and coursework, the internships, there was a lot of hands-on experience that they were able to share about their experiences, putting what we're learning in the classroom into practical application outside of the classroom.
Yes, that hands-on experience. That's awesome. And Nicole.
I would say I'm from Greeley, so knowing some of the professors just from recruiting, a lot of our professors in accounting had really good contacts with firms all over Colorado. So they knew, like Nick had said, practical experience. There's a lot of them that still practice tax while they were teaching us, but they knew a lot of people within the firms that we were all trying to apply for either internships or full-time positions. So that was one thing, is that being the size of the business school we were, it was easy to talk to the professors and get direct contact with the firms that we were trying to get jobs with.
That's awesome. Thank you, Nicole. Our next question: as an entrepreneur, how do you balance following your passion and creative instincts with the practical aspects of running a successful business? And how do you ensure that your business strategy supports your creative vision? Nick, we'll start with you.
Thank you. I've been really fortunate to have a business partner that has really aligned with me as far as vision, values, and approach to business. And then the practical aspects of running a business, we have differences that help us balance each other out. As far as being able to continue to support the creative vision and business strategy, from the very beginning, we set out core values that were really the foundation of how we make decisions. And so that was a way for us to stay accountable and be able to discern in an intentional way each step along the way what we would like to do for our business. And so I would say that establishing our core values and making that be the foundation to our decision making has helped us the most in being able to continue to ensure that we're matching our vision with the practical needs.
Definitely being intentional from the beginning, right? Nicole?
I think it's funny every time I get asked this question. Accountants aren't allowed to be creative because that's how we get in trouble. So we find a different way to be creative. But a lot of, again, what Nick said, I started this, and I always go back to what got me to this point to start my own practice and the passions that I have, and my family is one of them. And so being able to choose my own hours, choose the type of work and who I want to work for, it allows me to still focus on that while pursuing my dreams. One thing I would keep in mind too, and I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs do this, when you start, you take what you can have, but I think, or what comes to your door. And I think one thing you need to keep in mind is always stay true to your values. I think you're going to hear that a lot in the following questions we have, but there's going to be times where those are tested, either because the contract size could be big or it's a good lead, but it doesn't align with your values. And that's one thing that has become easier to follow and is always just a stable spot for me to go back to.
Yeah. Thank you, Nicole. And Alton?
Yeah, I'm going to co-sign with what both my fellow panelists said, because I am a weird mix of being a wordsmith and a total non-creative. I am Mr. Linear. Put me on the railroad tracks, point me one direction, and that's the direction I'm going. But one of the things that really jumped out at me, especially, as a newer entrepreneur over the past couple of years, and this is also to echo Nicole's point, I am an entrepreneur, but I'm not a mercenary. So I am not going to take a contract or a project or anything that I feel any level of ick with if it doesn't align with my beliefs. And see, one of the things that has worked well for me just throughout life is the golden rule. I just treat people how I want to be treated. You see all the things that are going on in the world politically right now, and I tell people I belong to the party of Benjamin Franklin. That's the only party I'm worried about. And so that has helped me navigate this world, and it also has helped me have a client base that includes Denver's former mayor and the person who ran against him in his last election. I was like, whatever political differences y'all have, that's y'all, but you are in different spaces now, and let me help you tell your story.
I love that. Thank you, Alton. Alrighty, next question. Many entrepreneurs struggle with imposter feelings, especially in the early stages of their businesses. How have you navigated feelings of self-doubt, and what strategies have helped you build confidence in your abilities? And Nicole, we'll start with you.
I think one thing I have learned, you have to find allies, and those are friends, family, coworkers, past coworkers. I found a coach who helped me with this, and the confidence is always hard, but each morning you really just wake up and say, you got this, you can do it. With us too, losing clients was really hard at first, either our doing or their doing. And I think what's taken me a while to learn, and I wish I would have learned this, is everybody's not a good fit. And it's okay if you don't win everything, if you don't keep everything for long term. And it's not you that is the problem. You learn from there and move on, and each day is a new day, new possibilities.
Definitely. You keep going, right?
Yes.
Yes. All in. What about you?
Well, that's a lot to unpack there, but I'm going to start off with being a man of color. Um, Imposter syndrome is almost endemic in communities of color. And one of the things with me, again, to echo one of Nicole's points, is having people in your network who you can just go speak to. Because, I had a friend tell me, I'm gonna go back just real quick a little bit. I worked for a U.S. senator for 12 years, and then when he retired, because we were all appointees, we all found ourselves on the bricks. And because I worked for a U.S. senator who announced that he was not running again, I couldn't even get a phone call returned. So fast forward to when I left my last position and I was starting to have feelings of anxiety and went and talked to somebody like a Nick and went and talked to my friends. They're like, Alton, in Denver and in Colorado, you're your own brand. You were doing the DC thing before. This is a whole different thing. And I'm not trying to be immodest here. I don't even have to advertise because I have a reputation of putting out good work and doing it right and doing it in a cost-effective manner.
That's awesome. All in. And Nick.
For me and my business partner, we sat down beforehand and made a decision that what we're starting is a long-term investment. And I think what that did was create a relationship that wasn't based on like an immediate need. I wasn't living and dying based off of the success of our business. This was something that I started as a side gig, and we slowly built it up over time. And I think what that allowed us to do is have a relationship that with our business that was built around curiosity, like fun, and being able and learning, where I think that sometimes the imposter feelings really start to spark up when people are saying like, I need this business to take off because this is responsible for my livelihood. And I think doing some pre-planning, doing some budgeting beforehand to really enter into entrepreneurship from a place that has some safety nets built in can really create a foundation of confidence for you.
Definitely. Doing your research, being prepared. I appreciate that, Nick. Alrighty, next question. How do you ensure that your business is accessible and inclusive to all communities, particularly those who have historically had limited access to entrepreneurial opportunities? Can you please share specific steps you have taken to address barriers and create a more inclusive environment for your customers and your team? Alton.
Okay, well, I'm a one-man band, but I do try to live that on the daily. So how I do that is by being a bridge. So for instance, I have a client that operates in the space of trying to keep youth away from today's high-octane marijuana products. They're a very concerned, very compassionate group of folks who are kind of concentrated in the Cherry Hills, Greenwood Village kind of part of the Denver metro area. But by exposing them to other community nonprofits, the ones who do the work in the streets and respond to gang shootings and things like that, has helped open up both of their worlds to see each other's communities. And then another thing that I do in my business, since I am a sole practitioner, is I make sure that I've got a good bullpen in place. And part of that bullpen are bilingual English-Spanish speakers, and then also people who fill in things that are outside of my skill set. So someone calls me and say, hey, we're having a little bit of brush fire in this part of Denver. Do you know anyone who speaks Spanish? And it's like, yes, I do. Or, hey, we're having an issue telling our story visually. Do you know somebody who does graphic arts? I can reach out to someone in that part of the bullpen and be able to help get them a little work by making sure I connect them up.
That's awesome. Networking at its finest, right? All righty, Nick.
So Collective Counseling Solutions supports clinicians who are in private practice, and we help with credentialing and billing, and specifically around accepting insurance. And so we did that because we wanted to increase access to care for people seeking mental health services. Currently, we have a little over 450 clinicians part of our collective across 10 states. And what I think has been really helpful is kind of like our industry kind of requires us to be inclusive and to have that on top of mind, because there's so many people looking for services that have different demographics, different backgrounds, different needs. And so it's been really important for us to connect with clinicians who have various degrees of expertise and are part of a lot of different communities to be able to serve those who are seeking services. The other thing that we've done just recently as we've grown, one aspect that's really important to us is that there tends to be like a level of gatekeeping, I feel like, in businesses, and I think Alton even mentioned just kind of like the barriers to entry for various people. And so as we've built up our community of clinicians who are part of our collective, we have started to say, hey, as we grow, we want to give you opportunities to rise within our company and do some different aspects of the business, whether it's some administrative work, some credentialing, billing, some different areas that for them to be able to learn the back end of things and not just feel like they're stuck as only being a provider. And so when I hear about this question about inclusivity, I think about it from like a demographic standpoint and needs, but I also think of it from like a business standpoint of how are we including the people who are on the front lines and really responsible for the success of our business, to be able to give them opportunities and include them in the success and in what they want to, how they want to grow and develop their careers professionally and personally.
I think that's really impactful. What both of you have mentioned, bringing other people up with you, that's pretty powerful. Thank you, Nick. Nicole.
I think ours, unfortunately, doesn't, or we don't have the need necessarily. I think with the technology now, we're able to reach a lot of rural areas or places where there's not storefronts of CPAs or accountants. But there's still business owners that need our services. So I think a lot of technology has allowed us to reach those locations, business owners from all over the US, whatever their demographic is, and help them. And like Alton said, there's a lot of times where we aren't a good fit, but we've surrounded ourselves with other CPAs, other attorneys, bankers that can fit the needs of whoever is looking. So if we don't have the answer or can't fit them, whether that's language barrier or location or whatever, we have found a way to make a network, at least referral sources of, I can't help you, but I'll help you work with this person, and check in on them and make sure that they're getting the help they need, or find another referral for them.
Nicole. Next question. So, and all of you have touched on this a little bit, but building a network is key to entrepreneurship. How did you strategically build your network to support the growth of your business? And what advice do you have for students looking to network in the entrepreneurial spaces? And we'll start with you, Nick, or Nicole.
That works. I struggle with this. Networking was super hard for me. Once I got out of school and not around my classmates, or where we weren't forced by the firm to go talk to people, I was like, oh, I don't want to spend my time doing that. Our time is valuable, whether it's because we're billable, because we have a full day of work and family. So I think the number one key is choosing wisely what your networking schemes are going to be. Sometimes it's chamber, sometimes it's BNI, sometimes it's reunions at the school with the accounting department. It just has to be what you want to spend your time doing and what you can get most beneficial. But I think one thing too, when I've gone to all these groups, be intentional. The gal that walks up to me and says, "This is what I do, here's my card, call me when people need my services." Instead of getting to learn somebody, that makes more of an impact than handing the card out that says, "Call me when you need me." So if you're gonna take the time to away from your family, away from your hobbies, whatever it is, make sure you choose what you're gonna enjoy and be intentional while you're spending the time doing it.
Thank you, Nicole. Nick. Oh, you're muted.
Fortunately, I'm pretty extroverted, so I enjoy going to networking events and meeting people, attending different activities and events. And so I think like that's fortunate on my end, just from a personality standpoint. But as far as like within like our business and how do we network within our business, similar to Alton, like, we don't market our services either. We've been really fortunate to grow by word of mouth. And so I think like when you're building a network, again, I want to revisit like the comment I made earlier about the long-term play. If you're acting on your values and you are interacting with people that you engage with in a professional, values-driven way, that goes a really long way in building a network. And I think it's true where it's like what you put out there is what you receive back. And so it's been really affirming for us to continue to revisit our foundations and source our decisions from our values. Is this next action, is this interaction we're going to have, is this coming from a place that's aligned with our core values? And the moment that it's not, that's when I think we're in trouble, and we might need to figure out that we need to do something different with our business, or get out, or get some additional help. But that's been the most impactful for us, is continuing to engage from a place of values and slowly build the network, so that I think there's too many things that are transactional nowadays. And so to build a business that is based off of relationships, it feels almost taboo or unique when it shouldn't, now.
No, I think those are some really good points, Nick. Alton.
You know what? And believe it or not, as much as I run my mouth, I'm actually sort of opposite of Nick, and I'm a bit of an introvert. I can turn it up to hit the networking events and all that stuff, and then I need a couple hours of just music and a paperback. But I love discussing networking for a few reasons. One, you see my graduation year. I graduated in 1986. So I graduated smack into the middle of a recession. So I drove a shuttle bus for an airport rent-a-car company. And even then, because I had a 7-minute captive audience, I was still able to network with everything from Division I NCAA basketball coaches to Hewlett Packard executives up in Fort Collins who were passing through on their way up to their headquarters. The other part of networking to me is, people love talking about themselves. Now, some of you may have to Google this reference, but look at the Will Smith in the movie Pursuit of Happiness, based on a true story. This is somebody who walked up to a very high-powered Wall Street person and just simply asked, "What do you do and how do you do it?" Another part of networking, and this is something I learned because of how I was treated as a $5 an hour rent-a-car bus driver, you never know who you're talking to. So I've got a real quick story here. I was at a Rockies game one time, and I'm not one of those people who oohs and ahs over other people's stuff, but I recognize quality when I see it. And so this usher saw me eyeing his watch, which turned out to be a Rolex Presidential. It's like a $20,000 watch. And he's like, "I bet you're wondering how this Rockies usher got his hands on this watch, aren't you?" And I was like, "Well, not from that standpoint. I was just admiring it." And he said, "Yeah, I sold 3 companies. I just do this to get fresh air and meet people." So you never know who you're talking to. So back to that whole golden rule thing. Don't let somebody's appearance, don't let the fact they're in a polyester purple vest, you never know who you're talking to.
I think it also, if I can add something,
Yeah.
I think that was a perfect point. We always say the accounting world is small, so you don't walk out your last day without giving notice, because we all talk. But I think now with everything we have, all of our worlds are small, and people talk, and it'll get around on how you treat people or how you acted at a job. And I think that is a very good point for networking, and how you show up yourself and treat people.
And just real quick, I also just have one more pointer that I give, especially to younger folks. Make sure that when you are networking, especially at networking events, be strategic. If someone sees you just carpet bombing all over the room, that is not that effective to me. So one of the techniques I always use is if I can get to one person, either a business owner or someone in the C-suite, and if I can get to their admin, I've accomplished something, because the admin can get you up the chain, down the chain, entry level, C-suite. So you need to talk to them because they know where all the files are filed.
Right. And I think that ties into the cliche, right? It's not about what you know, but it's about who you know. Right? Yeah, that's something I carry with me everywhere. Thank you all for your insight on networking. Our next question: entrepreneurship requires a great deal of resilience. Can you please share a personal story where resilience played a major role in overcoming a setback or a difficult moment in your journey? And how did you maintain the drive to continue to push forward? And Nicole.
I feel like this is kind of a cliche answer, but COVID was kind of our setback. We are, obviously, we value ourselves as something every business needs, but when costs got tight, we were kind of the first to go because they could do their own accounting. So we watched from March to June, just clients just dropping because they couldn't know all the uncertainty. Nobody knew if they could keep paying for us. Besides doing their payroll, they could figure it out. So it took, obviously understanding that, keeping the staff focused and everybody's positive attitudes. It took until coming out of COVID to reevaluate, okay, how do we get these back? How do we, because like my fellow panelists, I wasn't having to market. And now I'm trying to reconvince people, okay, the world's gonna be fine. You can spend money again. You should pay for our services. So that was a huge awakening and rebirth of how we're gonna network, how we're gonna grow business. And it was hard and frustrating and stressful, but now we're here. So it worked out, but there are times that are tough and you don't know how long those will last.
Yes, definitely. Definitely, Nicole. Alton.
One of the things with entrepreneurship, you really have to prepare yourself for chicken one day, feathers the next. And so to a point that Nick made earlier on, it's about making sure you've got your safety net set up. So that's why I always like to talk about the Rockies usher, because if something goes wrong with my setup, I can go do that and still live a lateral lifestyle because I'm fortunate enough to be a small municipal pensioner. So my main setback actually came prior to me hanging out a shingle. And again, I got through that setback where I made a major mistake because I was burning out because I was trying to do 5 jobs for the price of one. And I made a doozy. I made a six-figure mistake involving taxpayer money. And I just, as someone who's worked in government my whole career, I felt about this big. But because I have a strong and supportive network, and because of, again, people like Nick, I took advantage of the city's EAP, the Employee Assistance Program, and really was able to go talk and get some professional counseling. And they're like, yeah, it sounds like you're pretty fried. So you may want to think about doing something else. And I reached out to the city pension plan, and they're like, well, you've got your years, what is this called? It's called Rule of 75, age plus years of service. So you can get out of here with a little something, and you're probably gonna have to keep working until you're 65. And I'm like, bet, I'll take my chances. But just knowing that you don't have to braveheart your way through your struggles if you have people you can reach out to help get you over the hump. They may not be able to produce a lead or anything revenue producing, but someone who at least lets you know that you're heard.
Not going at it alone, right? Definitely on. Thank you. And Nick.
I think that part of entrepreneurship is that there's a lot of like glamorization of the experience and like starting your own business and so there's not often the behind the scenes of the grind that kind of comes and goes day in and day out. And so I think that it's important to know that when you're researching what you're wanting to do, to look at all of the sides, that there's a lot of upside, and there's a lot of risk. And I think when you're trying, for us, like when we were trying to start our business, we're like, what do we need right now to be able to start the business? And kind of you almost kind of plan for some resilience. How do you and think ahead of that? And I think to Alton's point about safety nets, we had we kind of had a budget. We had an emergency fund along the way, and so for us, we our first year we had on a recommendation hired some people to help us with some of the core components of our business as far as like credentialing and billing. They were they were doing what they were supposed to do. However, like we weren't receiving the payments from the insurance companies, and so my business partner and I were floating, and like for 3 months we were floating all of our payments to the clinicians on our own. And so it got to a point where he turned to me and it's like, I don't know if I can do like another month of this. And I was like, well, I have a secret special like emergency fund just in case. But what we ended up deciding to do, and I think this is another key part of being resilient, is exercising flexibility and being able to pivot when needed. So he and I sat down and we looked at some other options to be able to kind of submit some of the billing and do some of this stuff. And we're like, well, we have this resource here. Let's try this out. We made the change, and within 2 weeks, we were starting to get payments. And then we quickly, ended the relationship with the other company because we're like, we're getting paid now. We don't need to lose any more money. And so for us, I think resilience also includes being able to be flexible and pivot and know that it's going to be a roller coaster at times, and maybe you're going up and you're feeling good, and then it levels out a little bit, then you go up again, and just setting expectations that are realistic from the very beginning, I think helps manage some of the hardship that will inevitably come up.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you all for sharing your stories of resilience. I think it's really empowering to let students know that these things happen, and you're not alone. All righty. As the entrepreneurial landscape continues to evolve, what trends or shifts do you see shaping the future of entrepreneurship, particularly for young, diverse entrepreneurs? How can students prepare for these changes and stay ahead of the ever-evolving business world? Alton.
All right. Well, two things. One is be yourself. And I mean that in the context of it may not be the most comfortable position to be in, but you are essentially now the voice of your generation. And so, what you bring to my sector, former sector, which was government, or my current sector, which is communication, is how you all communicate, how you are all able to use things like social media. I mean, when I went to UNC, I had a typewriter that had a digital dot matrix screen about that big, and I thought I was Mr. Tech. You know, now there are so many ways that people communicate that people in my demographic are okay at because we know how to use the tool, but to truly communicate using things like social media tools is something that I think where you can carve out a niche, and that also transcends many sectors. The other part that really sort of I think would help transcend some sectors is in addition to being the voice of your generation, one thing to keep in mind, especially as you see market trends going up and down, there's always so much more work than there are jobs. So if you're able to set yourself up in a way where you simply have a client or two that is paying you cash and you have the discipline to be able to stash, I stash 30% to have some cushion because again, this is non-taxed income. And so there is a bite at the end of every tax year, but if you prepare for it by putting something aside, then when the bite comes, you can deal with it that way or do estimated quarterlies. But there's a lot of people out there saying, ooh, I need this task performed, but I don't have time to worry about all these benefits and getting an insurance plan in place and this, that, and the other thing. And so since you're able to like be on your folks insurance until you're what, 25, 26 years old or so, utilize that. Utilize having that kind of cushion as a potential jumping off spot. And again, use your communication skills to be able to transcend all sectors.
Thank you, Alton. And Nick.
So some of the shifts and trends that I've noticed specifically in my industry of like mental health services, I have I'm at risk of like overgeneralizing, but it seems to be a trend outside of that industry as well, is one where social values and social impact, environmental impact, like these are trends that I think are starting to become more important for a lot of consumers. And so I think that what we've experienced is, again, like there's a lot of private equity, venture capital that comes in and creates these companies and these services that offer a lot of upside, a lot of convenience, and a lot of opportunities for a brief period of time until maybe their next sale or whatever it might be. And I think that if to me it feels like a lot of consumers, a lot of uh, contractors, employees are getting burnt out from like that process. And so I think that there's a trend of being more relational and being values driven. There was a question about diversity, equity, and inclusion earlier in this section, and I just read an article about Target and Costco, and it's like Costco has stayed committed to their DEI um, procedures, protocols, like initiatives, and Target has gotten away with it, and they saw like a huge drop in some of their their foot traffic into their stores. And so I think that especially coming out of COVID and everything, like we're getting hit all the time to consume stuff, and this trend towards like meaningful relational business and interactions that has substance behind it seems to be a trend that is happening for me.
Thank you, Nick. Nicole.
I would say agreeing with all that they said. One thing that we've started to embrace, it took me a little longer, is the digital changes. Using AI, which, I mean, I can't use that for accounting, but using it for the social media, using it to connect, to ask questions. I think that's something that you intelligently need to embrace, and be able to use the social media platforms. However, I don't think you should rely on social media platforms for your everyday interactions. I think Alton said it, you have to still be able to communicate. You have to sit down and be able to have a cup of coffee with clients or networking or whatever, and not just send text messages or Instagram. I'm not on any of them, but on Instagram or Snap. Like, you have to be able to talk to people and have relationships. And that's where you also learn, like Nick was saying, what people's values, their social backgrounds, what they care about, which isn't always the money. A lot of people now are not wanting to work the 40 hours because they want to go hiking and spend time with family, and they're willing to find that range. So I think sitting down and talking to people is something that we need to get back at, so you understand where people are coming from. Emails and texts can get not meaning the reader is understanding something in your meeting, and creates a lot of issues, especially when you're asking financial questions. So I think going back to learning how to use these social platforms for your business, but learning to communicate with people face to face again is a big thing. Innovation definitely is a huge thing for accountants. We call it a tech stack, but going through and learning all the tools that can help us be efficient is something, again, I was kind of late to the game on, but now that we're using it, I think there's a lot of tools out there that can be used to help you grow your business or sustain it, whatever point you're at.
Hey, Nicole, she's really nailing that point about the communication piece, because, I've always been of the school of thought, if something is true, is it a stereotype? And so a lot of things that people talk about with our younger people is claiming that no one younger knows how to sit down and have a conversation anymore. I coach high school basketball, so I'm always on my guys about when we're talking, a little eye contact, a little firmness in the handshake. I also am senior advisor to a larger communications firm, and when I help them land a bit of business, I got a handwritten thank you card. It wasn't a text, it wasn't an email. Someone took a second, of course, to make sure their brand's on it, where, we understand there's some give and take, but they did reach out with a handwritten note. And that spurred me to remember that I know someone who owns a printing business, and I'm going to get some of mine with my brand so I can continue to bring that touch. So if you are coming out of college able to sit down, have a cup of coffee with somebody, make strong eye contact, show interest in them, not just what they can do for you, but find out about not only their business, their life, their family, what lights them up, you'd be surprised the path you'll be able to blaze.
Yes. Thank you, Alton and Nicole and Nick. I think, honestly, it is the little things sometimes. I truly believe that, and how to make those connections and feel authentic, right, to yourself still. I agree. Alrighty, we're on our final question. If any of our attendees would like to ask any questions before, feel free to use the Q&A feature, but we're going to jump right in. So can you please provide a final word of advice for our UNC Bears listening in, currently interested in launching their own businesses? Nick.
I think entrepreneurship can be incredibly empowering and a lot of fun. And so the word of advice that I have is to stay curious and have a learner's mind. You know, there's so many aspects of running a business that uh, you can read a whole bunch of different books about it, but everybody has their own way of doing things. And so learn about your business, learn how you operate, and continue to make it your own and what you envision it to be. And, you know, as we've talked about, like around resilience, stay flexible. And in order to stay flexible, I think that's where curiosity and learning are a huge part of being able to continue to grow your business.
Thank you, Nick. Nicole.
I love all those words he said. Curiosity definitely is one that keeps you going. Mine, I think we've all said this, staying in touch and believing in your vision, why you started this, what your goals were. Stay consistent, use your resources, whether that's UNC professors, other students, or as you build relationships, as you make it through work. And one that I think is hard for a lot of us, because entrepreneurs kind of have a stereotype, is don't be afraid to ask for help. Whether that's a business coach, a life coach, just find people that are willing to help you and give you honest answers and still support you in whatever challenge you're facing.
Thank you, Nicole. And Alton.
And mine would be two things. One, as everyone's mentioned, stay curious, but also stay connected. Looking at our panel here, not only do you have graduates from different decades, you got one from a different century. Is what it is. And there's a reason that we have all gotten to where we are. So trust me, if you put out the energy of curiosity and interest, people are always willing to reach back and pull upcoming generations along by sharing their wisdom or, you know, talking through a situation that they may have encountered that's similar to something you're dealing with. So please make sure to avail yourself of the contact information, the LinkedIn links, and everything that's going to be shared with you.
Thank you, Alton. And thank you to all of our panelists for joining us today. It is always an honor and a pleasure to host fellow Bears and hear about their UNC experiences, unique identities, career paths, and industry insights. This was the final panel of the semester, but you can view all of our virtual alumni career panels by visiting our website at www.unco.edu/alumni/careers. And before we end, we have our colleagues over at the Center for Career Readiness who will be sharing a little bit of insight into their resources. Jessica.
Thank you, Teresa. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Espinosa. I use she, her pronouns. I graduated from UNC in 2016 with my bachelor's degree and in 2018 with my master's degree. And I am now a career counselor at UNC Center for Career Readiness. Here at the Center for Career Readiness, we are here to support you with all things career while you're a current student on campus, as well as 3 years up after graduation. Our office connects UNC Bears to quality on-campus, community, and national employers through the Career Tool Handshake and hosting on-campus career fairs each semester. Students are encouraged to schedule an appointment with our career counseling team for resume and cover letter reviews, job internship and grad school search support, mock interviews, networking tips, and more. We offer drop-in hours as well as job fairs and workshops throughout each semester. Further information on all of this can be found on our website at unco.edu/career, or you're welcome to email us at career.readiness@unco.edu. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Now I'm going to ask everybody to unmute themselves really quickly. And on a count of 3, we're going to do Go Bears. All right. 1, 2, 3. Go Bears!
Bears!
Thank you so much and good evening, everybody. Bye-bye.